Now, each night we're going to update you with the latest facts without fear, including information you're not going to get from a very biased mob in the media. In their sick, their ugly, twisted world, this pandemic, they're using it nothing more than another opportunity to do what they do every day, and that's bash President Trump. How many times have I said if he cured cancer, they'd criticize him for that? I think I've been proven correct, unfortunately. Now, misery seems to love company. Joyless Behar tried to get California Governor Gavin Newsom to say bad things about the president. Unfortunately for Joyless, it did not go as planned. Take a look.
Do you feel like you have to feed this guy's ego to get the respirators and to get the PPEs? Is that what's going on?
All I can say is, from my perspective, the relationship has been strong, and I'm not doing it to kiss the ring. I'm not doing it in a way, that I'm just being forthright with the president. He returns calls. He reaches out. He's been proactive. We got that Mercy ship down here in Los Angeles. That was directly because he sent it down here.
Everything. By the way, there's a lesson there for Andrew Cuomo. You know what? Andrew, president's giving you those hospitals you take photo ops in front of. Yeah, he's been building all the things that, well, you didn't do yourself. Governor Newsom, by the way, is a far-left Democrat. He has about, 68 lawsuits, I think he said, pending against the Trump administration. Hardly a fan of Donald Trump, but he's working together, and he's leading his state and making it more safe and secure. Done a much better job than they've done in New York, I'll tell you that. And he's telling the truth, putting partisan politics aside. He should be commended tonight. Cuomo, on the other hand, he has been complaining each and every day. And sure, he's going to show up for a photo op at, let's see, the Javits Center hospital that Donald Trump and the federal government constructed, the Army Corps of Engineers. He's accepting thousands of ventilators, many he threw in a warehouse, millions of masks and gowns, and he'll go around on TV and he'll take a photo op in front of the ship, the Comfort, that, by the way, only had 20 people today. I'm not sure why, and bash the administration and demanding they do their job. Just today tweeting, "We do not have enough ventilators, period." So how many ventilators is Cuomo short? He does realize there are 50 other states that are dealing with the virus. Now, today, during his daily briefing, the president addressed this very issue. Let's take a look.
They should have had more ventilators. They were totally underserviced. We're doing our best for New York. We have states. We have a lot of states. We have territories, too. But we have a lot of states that have to be taken care of, some much more so than others. We've worked very well with the governor. We happen to think that he's well served with ventilators. We're going to find out. But we have other states to take care of.
Every New Yorker needs to know what an epic fail. Governor Cuomo has failed the state of New York on a terrible level. After all, November 2015, he was given, we'll show you the report, an important report from New York State's Health Department, Department of Health. Let me read from page 30. It says, quote, "During a severe influenza pandemic, there is likely to be a projected shortfall of ventilators, 15,783 during peak week demand." After reading this report, Cuomo, he purchased 0 ventilators for New York. By the way, smallest geographical location with 11 million people, New York City. Instead, he instructed the commission to figure out ways to ration the existing 2,000 ventilators. The #1 target of terrorism, the #1 at-risk place in the country for disease, the most dense population, has a shortage of ventilators. He wouldn't buy them, but he wasted $750 million on a solar project, another $600 million on another idiotic project, $90 million on a light bulb project, and he wouldn't buy the ventilators. Now, because of an executive order, also in New York, any prescription of the potentially life-saving treatment hydroxychloroquine, if you want it, well, you got to go to the hospital system, which is already overrun. So in other words, you can't have your doctor call it into your pharmacy in consultation with your doctor. He won't let that happen. And Cuomo, why? I thought you're pro-choice, Governor. Let New Yorkers, in consultation with their doctors, decide. The president, when you ask him, like every other time, he's building you hospitals all over the place, sending you thousands of ventilators, bailing you out. I'm sure he'll send you the hydroxychloroquine. Just ask. Instead, he goes out on TV, pounds his chest, all talk, no action, blames the president, and his own health department told him to buy them. He refused. He wasted hundreds and hundreds and even billions of dollars. The mob and the media, oh, they love Governor Cuomo. They treat him like he's a hero. Well, he failed the people of New York, and he treats the president like garbage. In the middle of a national crisis, there's no help to the American people. None. How did you not prepare? The #1 target of terror. Unbelievable. President, you know what? It's all over the media as we now go through, and a lot of the media mob in so different ways. And, you know, you watch on morning media, what they say over there, fake news, Don Lemon saying his crap all over. We won't go to that, but believe it or not, Don Lemon pretends to be a news anchor over there. And if he were an actual journalist, this was an actual news organization, and he wasn't a partisan hack, and they didn't have a leftist agenda, well, when his fake news network was obsessed with the impeachment witch hunt, the federal government was warning Americans about coronavirus. Here's the timeline. December 27th, Chinese officials, the World Health Organization, they saw that there was some type of pneumonia-looking like virus. They didn't know what it was called yet. People were getting sick. December 30th, that's when they first found out. A few days later, January 6th, the federal government started to issue warnings. Wasn't labeled corona until January 7th. Follow these dates. January 20, CDC, its Emergency Operations Center. January 31st, 10 days after the first known U.S. case, President Trump issued that travel ban and conducted the mandatory quarantines followed. Look at your screen every step of the way. The administration took unprecedented, aggressive action and got the crap kicked out of it. Racist, xenophobic, hysterical, fear-mongering. Think about it this way. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he served 6 presidents. This guy has been a champion in fighting pandemics and HIV, and I mean that. Highly respected. And, you know, one of the most trusted experts in the field. Dr. Fauci didn't realize the true threat of the virus on January 21st. Take a look.
Bottom line, we don't have to worry about this one, right?
Well, obviously you need to take it seriously and do the kinds of things that the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security are doing. But this is not a major threat for the people in the United States, and this is not something that the citizens of the United States right now should be worried about.
But very well respected. Not to say anything bad about Dr. Fauci. He was lied to by the Chinese government. January 26th. Take a look.
The American people should not be worried or frightened by this. It's a very, very low risk to the United States, but it's something that we as public health officials need to take very seriously.
Where's the Biden? And 5 days later, President Trump enacted the travel ban. Wow. How much worse would this all be? Now, get this. Just breaking tonight. Yeah, the ever so clueless, out of touch, quid pro quo Joe. Remember him? He's, running those bad podcasts of his, TV podcasts. Initially called the ban xenophobic, hysterical, and fear-mongering. Look at this news. Yep, Joe Biden now supports the president's travel ban with China. That's 2 months and 3 days too late, Joe. Now, every Democrat running for office needs to be asked the same question. You people in the mob and the media, ask him now in retrospect, was Donald Trump right? This was bold. This was unprecedented. Untold thousands of Americans didn't contract the virus, and many others didn't die. And China lied to the world. That's why Dr. Fauci didn't know. It's not his fault. But still, the president got it right 5 days later. They lied about the number of cases, the amount of death, the way the disease is spread. They blocked U.S. researchers and world researchers, important data. The World Health Organization spread their lies and propaganda. They're a disgrace. We should have nothing to do with them down the line. One study in the U.S. found if China had been honest sooner, that study, 95% of all of this could have been prevented. The mob and the media don't care about truth. They're just worried about scoring cheap political points, as demonstrated by fake news Acosta today. Take a look.
And where is Dr. Fauci?
I don't know, but every time you ask that question, whenever he's not here, you look, you say, where is he? And you'll say, is there a problem? No problem whatsoever. Every time he's not here, sometimes I'll ask him to come because that's the first question that you and a couple of others from the fake news establishment ask is, where's Dr. Fauci? We're doing great.